Hello and welcome to the question annotation section of these revision videos for Skipton Castle. Now, just like with the other questions, I'd like you to highlight the key parts of the question and then annotate around it some of the answers that you might use. Now, Skipton Castle, slightly different style of questions. These are worth 20 marks, but unlike in all the other papers where it's a how far do you agree question, it's not like that. For Skipton Castle, this is more like your 10-mark explain questions. So what you need is 3 point, develop, link paragraphs. And if the question feels like it needs it, a conclusion. Now you only pick 2 of the 3 that are on the paper. Okay, so you pick 2 out of 3. And you spend half an hour on each of these 2 questions, so you get loads of time to answer these. So have a go, pause it, and see if you can pick out the key parts of the question. Okay, now, a bit like with some of the Elizabeth questions where there's extra stuff in there to, that you've got to read, this bit is always in every single question. Use physical features of the site as well as your knowledge to support your answer. Basically, what it means by that is you need to describe the site as part of your answer. So that will be on every question. Excuse me. So, explain the reasons why people first created your site within its surroundings. So by that they mean, why did they make your site ours is Skipton Castle? Why did they create Skipton Castle at that location? Okay, there seems to be, or has been, in the last 3 years of exams, this question in some kind of form. Why was your site created at this time? So because it's that focus on surroundings and the why people first created your site, the points need to be on why did they make that site and why was it at that location. So the first point I would think of is defence. It's a Norman castle. All Norman castles were for defence. It's also for control, to control the local Saxon population. And also, Skipton's location was also chosen because of trade. So we're going to turn over, and just like we've done with the other questions, we're going to have a go at planning our answers. So just pause, have a go, and then come back and see whether you are correct. So we already identified our points. So we're going to talk about defence, we're going to talk about control, and we are going to talk about trade. Now, one of the reasons why it's defence, or one of the reasons why they choose those surroundings, is because of the high cliff at the back. It's on a hill, and it also has the Ellerbeck running behind the castle. So these are your descriptions that you would use of the physical features of the site within your answer. So one reason why people first created it at the Skipton Castle at this place is defence. At the back of Skipton Castle is a high cliff that makes it impossible to scale. Or Skipton Castle is on top of a hill. The Ellerbeck is behind the castle. Why do they choose this location? The high cliff means, maybe let's put a little bit of context in first. Okay, a little bit of context. So it's built after the Norman conquest as protection against the Scots. So that's you using your own knowledge. Physical features are here. High cliff means it cannot be attacked from the back. The Ellerbeck, extra layer of defence. And the fact that it's on a hill means that you could see any attackers coming. Well, how about control? Again, this is going to link to the Norman conquest. So you're going to describe in your development the key features. Now it's all about the local lord gaining control of the area. So again, they choose the location because it's on a hill, and they also choose the location because there is a church next to the site. So Norman conquest, the local Saxon population needs subduing. It's built on a hill to oversee the population, and building it next to a church means that the Lord can show people that he's linked to God, he's chosen to God by God. The site has this link with the church, so it shows that he should be there. Okay. Another reason why they choose the location is because of trade. Skipton is built on the cross section of two Roman roads. And again, that's you using the physical features of the site. Why do they choose to build it there? The roads are still in use for trade. This means trade will come to the castle, and the Lord can control the trade. So you only need 3 points. If it feels like it needs a conclusion, add one in just in case. In the 2018 mark scheme, 17 to 20 marks did require a conclusion, but in 2019 and 2020 it didn't. So if it seems like it's a how far question, add it in, but this one is just a basic explain question. Next question. Have a go, highlight the key parts of the question, and see if you can pick up what points you could use. Pause and I'll see you in a second. Okay, so like on the other question, it will tell you use the physical features of the site, use your own knowledge. This question is, how diverse have the activities and people associated with your site been throughout its history? So that tells me that we can use all time periods of Skipton Castle. So throughout all time. The word diverse means how different. How different have the activities and people associated with your site been? Now you don't have to do people and activities. You can do activities or people, or you can do both. Now the thing is with Skipton Castle and people, the people aren't particularly diverse. They've all been lords and ladies, or then the Fattorini family who have been quite wealthy. So I think the best thing to do for this one is to go for activities. So how different have the activities been at Skipton throughout its time? Now there's a range of different activities that have happened there. When it was created, there was building work. There's been building work throughout its history. In the medieval period, it was a centre of law enforcement. What physical feature tells us that? Well, there's the prison underneath the castle. There's also been sieges during the English Civil War. What features are there of that? Well, there's Lady Anne's rebuilding after the slighting. There's also been kind of royal leisure pursuits, like hunting. And we know this from the gardens and parks. And then there's also, in the modern day, been tourism. Get that from the ticket office and the public toilets. So many, many different activities. So have a go at planning your answer to this question. Okay, so let's start with building work. So one activity associated with the site throughout its history has been building work. Works occurred throughout Skipton's history. For example, wood to stone, new apartments, tutoring, rebuilding. So I would explain that this has, again, like I said, maybe just pop in the building work that's occurred. Your development work has occurred throughout Skipton's history, but the purpose has changed over time, e.g. defence, luxury living. The building work, the purpose of the building work has been diverse. Skipton Castle has also been used for law enforcement, evident through the prison created under the castle. So you could just explain the law enforcement a little bit more. So Skipton was used during the medieval period to house criminals from Skipton prior to being tried at the assizes in York. Another activity could include siege or tourism. Any of these are the ones that you probably feel a bit more comfortable that you have the content about. So siege and war. So Lady Anne's rebuilding shows the damage caused to Skipton during the Civil War. Maybe mention the slighting and the reduction of, taking off the roof. So Skipton Castle was part of the King's, let's put supporter of the King during the English Civil War. It was under attack and under siege twice before being defeated. Again, box is a little bit too small. So in the development, this is really where you put in the knowledge that you kind of have about the castle. You could also, like I said, go for tourism, whichever of the points that you feel you have had most, you've got most information about in the exam. It's all about just being able to explain the different activities associated with the site. Now, you may kind of want to put in a bit of a conclusion with this one. So how diverse have they been? Make an overall judgment. You could talk about building work always happening throughout its history. However, you could talk about how law enforcement and the siege were at specific points in its history and they actually haven't been repeated. So last question from the 2018 paper. Highlight the key parts of the question and then have a go at picking out some of your points. Okay, so again, there's that use that physical features bit. This one's different to the other two. Question 2, you could talk about Skipton throughout its history. In this one, you have to choose one period in your site's history. Now, we tell you to talk about creation and medieval, which would also include kind of War of the Roses. Talk about the English Civil War. Oh, sorry, let me start again. Creation and medieval period, kind of the Tudor period and include the War of the Roses in that, the English Civil War, and then the modern period. You have to state what period it is. Now, I marked one of these exam papers, and some people were choosing like a single day. You know, make this period nice and wide so you've got lots to write about. But obviously, you can't choose a period that's its entire history. So medieval, Tudor, English Civil War, or modern. How far do the physical remains at your site reveal the attitudes and values of people at that time? So reveal the attitudes and values of people at that time. Now, on first glance, this question seems better than this one. But actually, Skipton Castle, if you get a question like this, use the medieval period. Because there's a number of different physical remains that can tell you about the attitudes and values of people in Skipton. It can tell you about the importance of religion. It can tell you about the importance of like protection. And it can tell you about the views towards women. Okay. Now, these are more your link points actually. Okay. How far do the physical remains? See if you can work out which physical remains would help you work out about the attitudes and values of people at that time. Okay, so let's actually use those points that we did as that we identified as our points. So one thing it can reveal is the importance of religion. In the grounds of Skipton Castle, excuse me, a chapel was built in the medieval period. This is no longer in use. It's in ruin. The link here is what can this tell us about attitudes and values of people at that time? Well, it can show that religion was more important to medieval people than today. It can also show that wealthy people believed the church and wanted to ensure their souls were safe. Because wealthy people at the time would quite often, one, build their own chapel so they didn't have to mix with people, but two, they also kind of would pay priests or monks to be in their chapel and pray for the souls of their like departed ancestors. Another area that could tell you about protection. So you could talk about thick walls, arrow slits, curtain wall. Tells you that the Lord was expected to care for his people, and that local lords played a part in protecting their area. Could talk about, for example, again, the Scots and how people from Skipton would come and be safe inside the walls of the castle whenever there was a raid. Another thing that it tells you is attitudes towards women. So when the new apartments are built, great hall, kitchen, etc., a withdrawing room is added for women. The withdrawing room is a space for women to go to after meals and to sew and have polite conversation. What does this tell us about medieval attitudes to women? Well, it tells us that it's definitely a patriarchal society. They think women should not be troubled with the business of men. And should be kept separate during male conversations.